Final Productions, Praxis Pedagogy exists to position our teaching and learning practice within different methodologies. We want to construct a guild of educators dedicated to designing a difference in our own teaching and learning and in our students' experience. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Praxis Pedagogy Podcast, episode 71. It's been a minute or two since we've last sat down and had a chat together, isn't it? It's been a while. Hope you had a great break over the summer. Well deserved. And I am super excited to start this new season, this fall term. Buckle up, baby, because here we go. Edward Logan is here to join us to talk about all things new coming up in this fall term. He is a plumbing professor from Durham College in Ontario, Canada. Sit back, relax, grab your coffee. See you on the other side. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Praxis Pedagogy Podcast. So glad you've tuned in to this episode. We have the Edward Logan from Durham College all the way out in Ontario. Thanks, Edward, for being on the show today. Really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
No problem. I always find some time for you, Tim.
Oh, that's awesome. So, Ed, for those who may not know who you are, give us a little intro bio on who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm currently a full-time professor, unless something changes, at Durham College here out in Whitby. I teach in the skilled trade. More specifically, I teach our plumbing students. So I dabble a little bit of everything. I dabble a little bit in apprenticeship, as well as what we call post-secondary, or almost like a pre-apprenticeship type thing. And I teach a variety of subjects to all of them, between the math to the code and whatnot. I'm also a licensed plumber with a Red Seal endorsement. And on the side, I dabble in a little bit of fun, doing a little podcast myself called Trades Educator Podcast. And I just recently started a new thing talking about skilled trades, trying to get back to the skilled trades, live kind of version of the podcast, focusing on skilled trades and just trying to educate people. Because I find that, I don't know about yourself, Tim, a lot of people who are in the skilled trades, who are not in the skilled trades, don't always know about the other options besides college and university and what's involved in the skilled trade. So I'm trying to give a little bit back, trying to explain that, how these trades work and how to get educated and whatnot.
Yeah, that's always an interesting conversation, right? That when I talk to people about trades and what it's done for me and my family and my life and, trajectory of career, they're often surprised at, first of all, that someone is a ticketed tradesperson, because it's almost like we're this secret breed of people that build things and really aren't seen that much, and then they always have these questions. So, like, why'd you pick trades? Why'd you go into trades? And so it's always an interesting conversation, right? When you see the lights go on and they go, oh, you mean there really is reward and there is satisfaction in being a tradesperson?
Yeah, and I think I always joke with people. I say, "What do you think? All these jobs we just all drop from the sky one day, and okay, all the people who weren't bright enough and are back when we were in school, they all just kind of drop from the sky and all become, plumbers, electricians, whatever it may be, right? And they're kind of like, I think people are surprised what it takes to become, licensed in whatever particular trade you're in. I think when I have those conversations, I don't know about yourself, but when I'm at the college here and I'm having open house, and I kind of explain about our program, but I also explain how this all works, right? Other schooling, let's say you want to be in HR, you go to school for HR, you could be a university or college, and you learn all about HR, and then now you have the experience, you go and apply for jobs. I said that's basically what we're kind of doing, but we do it hand in hand in the field. We do have to learn how to do this, just like everybody else has to learn whatever, if you're a doctor or a nurse. I always compare doctors and nurses kind of like similar to us, right? They have that hands-on component. They do go in the field and have their interns, I guess they call it. Maybe it's a nicer word that they have. I don't know, apprenticeship, or
yeah, I think they call it a proctorship.
Yeah.
No, preceptorship. That's what it is. Because my wife's a nurse, and people are often surprised too to know that nursing and whether it's registered nursing or licensed practical nursing are considered vocational education, and because it's been somewhat elevated as a hybrid from vocation, between that vocation building that people really know are a little scared to go into versus the academic building where, all the math and physics and science takes place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, interesting. So what do you think is the most common question that people have for you when you talk to them about trades and the trades background?
I think they're interested in what you have to learn, like what you have to know. And if not, sometimes I try to emphasize that, like whether it be they're coming through a post-secondary program or, and eventually trying to get into apprenticeship. I say, I try to let them know, especially with this plumbing, I say, well, there is math involved, right? And then, I try to explain the math. And I say, some of this math you've already learned before in the years prior. And, but it's, it's more practical. You're using an application. But I think people are also I think they want to know how long it takes to go from zero to like knowing what you have to know and be licensed. And they also kind of want to have a feel for, I don't think they always do. That's why I think they ask is like, what can you do with this license? What, how much money can I make? And I think, sometimes they do ask me, where can this take me? Where can this take me? And I'm like, well, it's more than just the license. You can, you could be a person who specializes in something. There's lots of plumbing companies who specialize in service or new construction, or you could be in residential type of construction. You could be in industrial, or like I had said, I have a friend of mine who has their license, but they specialize on backflow devices, and that's a device that we use in plumbing. And you can get special certification for that, and that's what that person does for a living. They go around to major facilities that have multiple of these devices, and they test them every year, like they're supposed to test them, and then they fix them. So I think they're just kind of interested in what it takes overall, what it takes. Because I definitely get a lot of people coming in. I say it's not their fault. Like I said, with my experience, I had certain experience in my household where my dad sort of had an apprenticeship. But my mother didn't have any. Like, there was no college, university per se. So, and I know sometimes there's students coming to my open houses where their parents haven't had the apprenticeship background, right? So sometimes the parent comes with them, right? Even to try and help them out, because as we know in pathways, kind of when we're that age at 17 or 18, trying to decide we're going to college, university, what we're going to do for the rest of our lives, which is pretty scary. Our kind of major influences usually are our parents or our guardians, people that take care of us, right? Our friends are kind of in the same boat, so we don't really depend on them too much because they're trying to decide too, right? Or maybe it's a teacher that's at a school or a guidance counselor or something like that, right? So I think they're always interested to see where it's going to take you and what it takes to get to that point, right? So
is it similar out in Ontario or in BC where there seems to be a gap in understanding of the pathway to trades from high school?
Yeah, I think because I find that people just don't know even what apprenticeship is, like what it all involves. Like it's almost like I have to kind of take a step back, and that's kind of like where with that little series I just started the other day. I did my second one today, where I talk about trades. Is that even my oldest son right now, he's in high school and he's getting close to the later grades, right, where they have to decide. And I even saw there that they would give him like a presentation for him as well as for your parents or your guardians to help you to navigate your subject picking for grade 11, 12, right? To get you on the right pathway with taking the right subjects. And when they went through it, it was here's university came up first on the slide. And then it's, describing about university. And there's all these links and resources they can go to, so if you didn't have somebody who was in university in your family, there's a lot of information there that could really help you out and say, okay, I can understand what's involved here. These are my options. These are the school options. These are the programs I can get in. These are the careers they can lead to. And then the next slide in the show was here's the college, right? Again, full of resources, links, all this stuff to go to. And I thought, look, they got all this stuff there. And I was getting really excited. Even though I knew that trades was going to probably looks like it was coming third, which it was. It came third, right? So I still had that. Maybe I have a little bit of I'm maybe a little sensitive when it comes to trades. So I saw that as like third place consolation. We're going to bring it last. But in a way, it does perceive people when you see it that this comes up first, this comes up second, this comes up third, that subconsciously it's making you think that it's third, right? Anyways, but when I went to that slide, I'm like, okay, I'm interested to see what's there because as part of one of my programs I teach early on and the plumbing program, we talk about in post-secondary is about how the whole apprenticeship works. that's kind of the first module we go through. I explain how it works in Ontario. There's a different grants that you can get along the way. This is how many times you have to go to school, how many hours, kind of getting how the whole pathway works. And when I went to that slide, there was hardly anything on it, like hardly any
really?
links or resources. And I was like, these days, there's so many links and resources to so many different websites, whether it be a ministry website in Ontario. We also still have an independent College of Trades, which has tons of resources on it, links on it. Like you can go in there and see the 132 trades there are considered skilled trades in Ontario, and click on them. And they have little brochures that tell you, is it an apprenticeship? How many hours you have? It explains all this kind of in small detail, but it gives you a good snapshot, right? And I was like, where is all this stuff? Like I was like, and again, maybe it's just me beating the drums like for trades. I was like, come on, like here it is third, and here it is. It doesn't have any good resources. So, like I think I know my oldest son. That's probably not his pathway, anyways, based on what I know about him. But still, I think it's fair that you should have all the detail about all your options fully, get all the resources you need, all the information, and then that way you can make at 17, I still think it's a hard time to make a decision what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Oh yeah, totally.
I tell my students, I say, look, I wasn't implementing it first, right? This is probably my third career, I think, or maybe actually fourth career if I throw in teaching, right? And I'm like, so your pathway will wind. You're not going to go from school or whatever you're doing right into the dream job, and that's it. That's not gonna it's not gonna happen. It might happen for somebody, but very rare that's going to happen. So yeah, so that's what's kind of upset me lately. But I think there's still, like, I don't know, like I'm sure in BC there's a lot of stuff that they throw a lot of funding, promoting with the government, right? And there's a lot of people who are trades advocates who are not in the trades, which is great. It's good to have allies, I believe. But I think there still needs to be more people beating the drum who are actually been through the trades, to share that experience to people, right? And even here in Ontario, there's a lot of different groups where we'll have female trades people, right, come to talk to young female students in school. That relates even more to them, right? That here, yes, you can go into skilled trades even though you're a female, because look at this. Here's a woman, here's another woman who's done this, and it's more relatable, right, to a person when you see somebody just like you saying, "Hey, they made it, they did it. Why can't I do it?" So I just wish there was more out there. Just to, again, I think it comes down to maybe more to us who have the experience, who've lived it, to kind of beat the drum and let it be known out there and spread the information. So I don't know if it's the same out west or if it's kind of,
Yeah, no, it is. And, I'm sure you've had them at Durham College, but we've had these roundtable. For lack of a better term, we call them speed dating events, where you're at a round table and you have 8 or 10 counselors and career guide people from different high schools around the Lower Mainland here. So from Vancouver, Burnaby, New West, Coquitlam, Richmond, North Van, West Van. So there's a good splattering of people that show up, and it lasts for about an hour and a half, and you only have 10 or 15 minutes, and then they ring a bell and that table gets up and they move. And there's different tables, and so it's interesting. But whenever they come to my table, whenever I've been involved with it, they come to my table, and invariably the big questions come up. Okay, so how much do you make? How long does it take to get it? And what do you do? And, how do you take 10 minutes to describe what do you do? And because, everyone's experience is different, but in more cases than not. So out of 10 of those little speed dating rounds, 8 at least, maybe sometimes 9 of those little events will always end up with comments of, I never knew any of this. I wish I knew this a year ago. I wish I knew this before we started telling our kids which way to go. And I agree with you. I think we need to have more of those events and actually go to schools and do presentations. And I know that some unions out in Ontario are doing that. And I know that there's a few people in BC that are doing it, but it's not enough, right? It's just not enough. Because I think you're right that there is something psychologically, I won't say intentionally embedded in the process, but I think there's something psychologically in the process where, when you and I went to our trades experience in high school, where was it? It was always downstairs in the basement of the school, right? Now, part of that's just logistics because, you can't put a 2-ton machine on the 3rd floor,
Yeah.
right? But, if you're going to go and do woodworking, where was it? It was always down in the basement. If you're going to go and do any metal work, it's always down in the basement. But if you're going to go do some physics or chemistry lab, where is that? Usually second, third, fourth floor, right? Where they have nice labs, they have lots of windows, it's nice and light and bright, right? And so even just the physical location of those things, I think, communicates a lot. And I've shared this story a few other times too, is that there was a trades instructor at a pretty well-known high school here in Vancouver. And he was putting on a course that was an elective. So, his course would only run if he had enough students sign up for it. And if he didn't have enough, they would cancel it and use the money somewhere else. And his enrollment was decreasing over the last couple semesters. So he's simply changed the name of the course. And he used the word engineering in the new name, and the course filled up in like 3 days, right? Because people saw the word engineering, because that's the only thing he changed. He didn't advertise any differently, right? Didn't change any of the course content, the course outline, nothing like that. Just changed the name, and boom, it filled up. So there's a perception out there that trades is a consolation prize to university, and that's just not the case, right? It's just not the case.
No. And I was going to say that even one of my friends mentioned me the other day, and I kind of thought about this for a second. I'm like, well, the guidance counselors, they're in the school with the students trying to help them out, or whether it be even their teachers they're going through. And I hate to use it, but they're in the academic world. We're in the academic world too. But anyways, and it's their story for another day. But right, and they've grown up in that way, and even though they're having those like you're saying those little speed dating, they don't have that ingrained in them, right? And I know that, and I'm sure you're probably doing out west where I think it's really making a difference is where they're doing what they call dual credits in the high schools, where you'll do a sliver of a college program, and you'll have that college professor come out there, and then now the college professor who's teaching it, yes, he's got all that experience. So I found when I first started teaching, I did a couple of those. It was great because we were kind of doing like basic stuff for plumbing, like here we go. This is how you weld it. We do like a little square. We not weld it, solder it together, or we do a little PVC, put it together with the glue and stuff, right? Nothing fancy, like little projects, right? But it gave me time to kind of whisper in their ears, I like to say, right? And to kind of give them more information. They could ask me stuff too, right? Because here's the guy who, he's teaching it, but he's done it for a living, right? And my guidance counselor can give me so much, like, all the kind of, you make this much money. This will take you have to do this apprenticeship. And like you said, they can't remember every little detail. They can't give you that heartfelt experience where you can tell them, well, I did this, I did that, but you could do this and that too. But this is my experience, right? And I really enjoyed doing this. Like I tell some of my students now who are just starting out, I tell them there's, you don't have to do this. There's people who do this and they do service, or they, like I said before, specialize and stuff. And then people sometimes think about plumbing, like, well, that's a dirty job. I've done like a lot of new construction jobs. Yes, we tie into the main, which where the stinky stuff is going down, right? But it's like I'm putting in new fixtures and stuff like that. I'm getting dirty because there's dirt on the construction site, right? That's the dirty I'm getting, right? And just to have that, I think we're like you're saying, more connection where we're coming into the schools and having them, or even still here, like during calls, we do a lot of things where we bring, like, whether it be younger students, like in grade 7, 8, and they come here and they kind of have a look at the taste of the trades. And then they will have like almost like what you're doing, like a workshop. They can go to the plumbing shop for a half an hour and do a little project. And the plumbing guy, like myself, could talk to about plumbing and what we do. I mean, we don't get like a lot of time, but we still get time it's coming from me. And then they go over to the auto mechanic lab, right? And then might learn how to repair a patch of tire or something, right? But they get to now speak to a teacher who's done it for a living, and I think that helps a lot too, right? Because you're getting it from the horse's belt, I guess you could say, right? From somebody who has that lived experience, right?
Yeah, no kidding. And and I feel that there's a lot to be said about rubbing shoulders with people who are in the trades. Because I got into the trade late. Like I didn't get in the trade until I was 26, and I built homes for 5 years. I was a framer. I wasn't ticketed or anything. I was doing it, but and I knew what a plumber did. They showed up at the job site in a big cube van. They smoked a lot of pot. They went into a building. They came out at the end of the day, all covered in this yellow stuff that it just looked disgusting. and then they'd leave. They'd show up a couple days later, smoke a bunch more pot, go into the building, do a bunch of other stuff, and leave. And from from my experience of building homes, that's what a plumber did. And I'm like, I don't want to do that job. But I was early 20s, and then later in life, going, okay, I need to pick a trade, and going, well, if I make a mistake electrically, that could do some serious damage, right?
Yeah.
And steam fitting and pipe fitting here in BC, the only way you could do that is to get out of town and do out of town work, and having a family and stuff like that's not going to be conducive. So I kind of fell into plumbing just by default, because I'm like, okay, I'm not sure what they do, but I mean, what's the worst that can happen to you, right? You get some water on you, maybe you get a little poop on you, and that, you can wash that off, but at least you're not going to lose an arm or something like that. And I didn't know anything about the plumbing trade, so I go and do the foundation program at BCIT and do well and get a job right afterwards. And I tell people that, changing out toilets and sinks was probably 1-2% of my whole career. I spent my whole career in commercial and light industrial doing heating systems mostly, and, worked in hospitals and schools. And I mean, if people see me, they go, yeah, I wouldn't want you under my sink either. I just physically don't fit. Right. But, yeah. So there's just so much to the trade that people don't know and understand. And they need people like us to continue advocating and showcasing what we do. And I think there's a lot of pride in being a tradesperson, and there's no shame in, learning a trade, an apprenticeship in 4 years. Cause that's after that 4 years, that's really just when the learning begins. You really begin to dig into these other areas of your trade and really begin to hone your craft, very much like a teacher, very much like a dentist and a doctor. And quite frankly, the pay is really good. The flexibility is good. We have a ticket that no one can take away from us. And because we're Red Seal endorsed, we can work all across Canada. And we're even headhunted from, the States and other parts of the world, like Australia. They love our system. And, yeah, that's really awesome.
But I was going to say, I was going to jump in there and say, but I remember when I got licensed, it was like you're saying, but the learning doesn't stop. It's kind of beginning. All of a sudden it's like, okay, Ed, you're going to go with the new apprentice here, and you're going to go do this. And I was like, oh my God, I'm expected to know all this. And I thought, I can't remember what it was. I don't remember what the job was we had to do. All I remember was I had learned about it in school. I know there was code about it, but I had never actually done it. And now I remember having to go back to my foreman and kind of regroup a little bit and say, okay, so how do you want me? So how we attacking this? Like, kind of get a little head start. I said, I know there's code for vent. It was something like with venting and stuff. Right? I can't remember. I'm like, I know there's this, right? I'm like, he goes, yeah. It's funny how that you write the exam one day, the next day you're the expert. You know it all. Like he goes. So that's why I remember him saying to me, he goes, don't worry, Ed. Like, you'll be surprised if from this point on how much more you'll learn that. Even from the first 5 years, you'll be like so amazed, like thinking that almost like the apprenticeship should have been like 10 or whatever, or something longer, right?
Yeah. So well, no kidding, right? Amazing. That's why I really believe the statement that it takes about 10 years, 8 to 10 years to really get to know what you're doing and to be quote unquote the expert, which I don't think anybody can really become an expert in anything. They just get really good at it because, most of us would understand that as you get deeper into it, you realize just how little compared to what is really out there. Yeah. And yeah, it's so cool. So what are you teaching right now, and how, and as you get into that, how has COVID affected your apprenticeship programs?
Well, ever since I think it was July 2nd, because it was after Labor Day, or after Canada Day, last year, we were able to come back. Like we were off campus from the March, whatever it was, until July 2nd. And that was kind of like it was kind of deemed for the government as a pilot project, which was kind of funny. But anyways, they were going to go back to campus, like for lab wise. So it's depending on what the program was. Whether it was a post-secondary apprenticeship, apprenticeship was kind of, I think they were trying to hold the line that you had to meet all the outcomes where like post-secondary programs, they were like, if you have 80%, we can complete you kind of thing. But we still, for the apprenticeship, we still had to go back because some had stopped and started for other reasons. So they carried on. Actually, back then I picked up a course that had already started, that had gone 3 weeks, and I was finishing the last 5 weeks for it, and I was teaching trade calculation. So that was being done still online at the time, and those types of courses are still being done online right now, or any kind of theory based, so like the name of the code. But our practical lab courses, our welding course that's part of the post secondary or the apprenticeship, have now continued on, as well as I think for the apprenticeship they were doing. I think it was Trade Doc was the other one that we started off online, and we kind of realized it kind of needed a little bit of a hands on with the big blueprints and understanding that stuff. So I think at first it was alternating. I think it was alternating weeks, like 1 week in, 1 week out, kind of like a hybrid, I guess, model, online and half one time in, and then it switched to fully online. But throughout the time frame, we've kind of changed numbers. Like we've had a limited students in the classroom per se. So like our regular shop lab would normally allow 20 students in it. So at times we were reduced to 10, depending on what stage we were in. So when we started doing that, we had to kind of get brainstorm, where we had to find another space within the building like we're doing right now, and set up a secondary shop. So we could still continue having the 20 students, but we'd have 2 teachers and 2 different locations, so they were spread out, to meet the 6 feet limit, whatnot, right? So it's been kind of it's still going on like that right now. Actually, we have a pre-apprenticeship that's actually all in person right now. That's going all in person. And as it stands right now, we're still doing a combination for the fall. Some people are going to be all online for whatever programming, but most of the trades are what they call a hybrid. So you're doing kind of anything related to your labs in person still, but anything that can be done online is still being online. But I believe there's an announcement coming down from the ministry for the college and university, saying that the cap will be lifted, that there'll be unlimited students on campus. And so pretty much all the colleges are kind of pushing for a little bit more students on campus, based on the fact that the vaccine kind of a lot of people are getting it done. So there might be a potential that we are like right now I'm teaching in the end of August, my apprenticeships students online for trade calculation for level 1, but I could see that changing before we get to the end of August. It could be all face to face from there on in, maybe.
Oh, so they'll switch your course from online to face to face?
Yeah, they might be doing that. I'm not too sure yet. They're waiting obviously for the lead from the government. They haven't announced it yet. So, but I know that they've been, kind of behind the scenes preparing, because they get, as we all do, we get those whispers that it might be coming down. So trying to pre-plan ahead of time, so you're not trying to, change things on the fly quickly here. But and I think most of the colleges and universities in Ontario have been hoping for a little bit more traffic on campus, just to kind of, as the risk, because I think we're what they call step 3 now in Ontario. There's another step to go, but we're pretty much, the stores are open. There's limits in some stores and restaurants and stuff like that, but there's more people inside buildings now, and different types of businesses. So I can see us probably transitioning by the fall, which would be good, because, I like that's one. I don't know about you, but it's one of my favorite part about the job is being on campus and just feeling that kind of buzz, and just even as I walk to and from my classes or whatever, I go catch a coffee or going to the main office or going to my office. I love going by the student kind of areas and just kind of swinging by and say, "Hey, what's up?" Right? Like I'm a young kind of cool hip guy, and just and shoot the breeze with them, right? But also just to come kind of sit there and say, "Hey," casually come in and say, "How are things kind of going? You need a little bit extra help or something, right?" That's make it a little bit easier. So I'm hoping for that will happen. But I've also told my dean that I'll be one of the ones that are kind of pushing for like maybe a future kind of hybrid model where we have 1 or 2 courses online out of the entire package. But I know that this fall in some programs, I don't think there are any of the trade related programs, but some are actually running where they do in person, as well as the cameras will be on in the classroom, and there'll be students at home. So they'll be doing there'll be 20 students enrolled from online at home, and then 20 students in the classroom with
doing a high flex model.
Yeah, high flex together, whatever they call it. Yes. So it's I think they're doing like a trial run with like a small percentage of the classes courses offered here at Durham College. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes, because it'll be different. I know that would scare me a little bit, because trying to answer questions live in person and then trying to monitor some kind of chat on the side if someone had a question who was watching it live from home. I know that would probably be a little bit challenging to manage. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's an interesting resource I'll include in the show notes, and I'll send it to you on high flex and how you set it up and how you run it. And there's a couple of videos too that I watched, and yeah, it's an interesting model for sure. I imagine it would slow down the pace in the classroom a tiny bit because you have to monitor both spaces at the same time. But I'm curious to know what do your students think about coming back to campus? Are the majority looking forward to it, or is it split?
Well, it's funny because I just had a conversation with a bunch of them there, me and our teacher, as I was wrapping up this morning, and they were saying, yeah, a lot of us in our group would say, oh, it hasn't been a good learning experience because most of it's been online, right? But then, or so they wouldn't say the online part. It's been not a good experience, right? And I think they're alluding to online, but then a lot of them would love the online because they like that way they can roll out of bed, right? Don't have to drive in. Right. So I think there's a mixed bag there that I'm like, okay, well, that means you have to drive in. So I know a lot of them are liking it because don't have to pay for public transit, don't have to worry about driving in and cost of gas. They don't have to get a babysitter maybe necessarily or whatever. They can maybe manage a little bit at home with a kid at home if they have a kid. So I think there's definitely a mixed bag, but I've heard a lot of people, even though people have been saying, oh, we all want kind of back to normal face to face. I've heard a group out there that kind of say, no, I wouldn't mind some of this online thing going forward because they've seen I think just as teachers, we've seen some of the benefits that it can provide you, right? Even myself, I have some of the same benefits, right? I can roll out of bed, right? I just got to fix my hair before I go on the camera, have a shirt on. I could be in my shorts or whatever, right? But, but I don't know about yourself. I've kind of there's certain things I've liked about it. I definitely missed that, even though I see people, I don't see all my students on the camera. A lot of them don't put the camera on, which sometimes help with the bandwidth and whatnot. But I do miss that where I can see my students and I can try and read their mind as we're talking and stuff, as I'm talking to see how they're doing. But yeah, surprisingly enough, there's a lot of students there. That's why I think they're going to, colleges and universities are going to have a hard time deciding now, see what the vibe is out there, because I'm sure there's going to be programs out there that are going to have at least a small demand for online entire program, but they're going to still have a percentage that want to come face to face. So trying to manage that, right? I know that some schools have some programs where they're totally face to face. They have some schools that have everything's totally online, and there's some that have a few, right? So I think they're going to have I think it's going to be a kind of a challenging time to figure out what the students want of tomorrow, kind of thing, right? What they want.
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because Andrea Niosi, who's been on the podcast a few times. So Andrea, if you're listening, shout out to you and all the good work that you're doing. She's been posting on Twitter the student enrollment rates for, I think she's teaching 4 courses this coming term. And it's interesting because there's 2 courses that are exactly the same, that, they have the exact same textbook costs. In fact, I think they're OER, 0 textbook costs to begin with. So there's no difference in the course, and yet her online version of it is full, and there's a waiting list for it already. Her face-to-face for it, I think, is like at 40% the last time I saw. So, that's kind of telling me that students love this idea of online learning. It's harder. I'll admit that I've heard from my own students that the online learning is harder from a discipline perspective.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But the advantage to online learning, as most of us would know, is that if you record your sessions, then the student has access to it almost at any time, and and all the benefits that go along with that. But like you, teaching night school for me has been awesome. I don't have a commute. I just finish my dinner, come sit down, teach a class, and then I'm done. I don't have to get in my car and drive for 35, 40 minutes to get home, or that, that 3-hour class is now condensed into an hour and a half online, and I have no commute. So it's fantastic. So yeah, for me, I'm in the fall, I'm going back to teaching 2 night classes, and right now they're both face to face, and we'll see how they pan out, because they're 2 popular courses. There's a whole bunch of instructors who courses that would be full by now, they're not even listing as being half full yet. So yeah, it'd be an interesting turn.
I was gonna say, I can definitely see it, especially like in that part-time kind of course where people are working, right? What they call it, some people call it the con ed or the professional centers, whatever, of the schools, right? Where those students are going to be coming evenings or weekends anyways. And I think that will be, for them, I think it'll be even a bigger advantage where you might see more of the even more online interest too, right? Because they're already trying to squeeze it into their life, right? And trying to better themselves. I think that'll be interesting to watch that side of it too. But I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm trying to, and I think it was, I don't know if it's the flipped classroom, or I always fight between the flipped classroom and the, is it I can't even say it, bisynchronous. I always,
Bikerness.
Bikerness, that's it. Bikerness. Yeah. Jam these words together. Because I kind of like the way I've been doing it, where I load up I did put stuff on my learning management system before, but very little, right? It wasn't geared to being an online course. I just put resources, whether it had slideshows, slide decks, I just leave them up there so they can look at it ahead of time, or if they want to look at it after, whatever, other resources and stuff like that. But now I've been trying to build a course where they could go through the experience and do it all online, and almost don't have to come to but I still have the live class. And I've tried to change the live class into almost like a discussion, so it's like a flipped classroom, I guess, in a way, right? I don't know. And but they kind of have both experience, or they can have one experience, or they can have, I don't know. I don't think you can have the live without the pre experience, but I don't know if I want to change that now, because when I have the classroom, and that's why I had approached my dean and say, I'm not too sure. Well, she said, well, you might be able to do it because, it's kind of your class. And I said, okay. I said, okay. Let me have this in writing.
You find out, right? you have more autonomy than you realize.
Well, right? Just read this, but what else do I have? What else can I do? Autonomy to do. But because I'm thinking, I'm building I've been building all these, right? And I've went through a couple of courses, right? So I've kind of did a second time through where I've kind of tweaked it again, right? And I've built a lot of the courses I've done. I've actually built them up because I've done them all now online. The ones I do online, right? Except for the in-person classes, like the shops and stuff. And I'm like, I want to continue this because I think how much great resource it is. But I can see that one day that maybe there will be a camera in the classroom, like you were talking about before. One of the benefits of recording, where it will just be not the student pulling his camera out that you're worried about filming you. There'll just be a camera in there, and it can be recorded, right? And I think a lot of people's minds change when that used to be. I know I used to be like worried. I'm thinking, no, you're not going to record me. It's up to me, right? You're not recording me. And my wife will probably be saying, because you're probably worried that you're going to say something like, you might swear or something. I said, no, I'm professional. I don't do that, right? But I was just the fear of like being recorded. I guess Big Brother watching. I don't describe it was, but then I realized when I did this recording, I'm like, oh yeah. And then people explained to me how beneficial it was. I'm like, okay, maybe this is not a bad thing after all, right? So there's definitely a lot to be learned from this experience. That's for sure. That opened a lot of our eyes up. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's a good segue into a couple of the questions I wanted to ask you. So what have you learned about your own teaching practice during this COVID era?
Well, I think I've probably mentioned a long time before, but I always thought I was really empathetic. And I think I've become even more empathetic. So maybe I wasn't as empathetic as I thought it was. I'm not too sure. Because I know that there's a lot of like talk out there about proctoring and all this stuff, right? Out there that, I just was talking to a student about an external thing that they were doing, a test they were doing, and how they had to have the camera on. They had to, have their eyeballs straight, and, how nerve-wracking it was. So it's the first time I actually heard it from somebody who's like lived experience. And I said, no, you know what? I'm teaching, and I'm going to give them a test. It's going to be online. It's going to be in the MLS, whatever. And I'm going to open it. And I thought I'll be more flexible. And maybe this is something I think that I've learned that I might carry forward is, before I would have a test in a class. So it'd be for 3 hours. It was a test. It was a 3-hour class. You had the whole class to do it. And that was it. And now I put a test up that's open for a whole week. And I don't even have a clock on it for 3 hours. It's open. It's actually, if they open it, they could actually have a full week to do it if they really wanted to. And then I thought, because I thought about the proctoring and then they locked down the servers and all that jazz. And I thought, no, because what do we do in the real world? Well, in the real world, we have access to our code book. So they're going to have access to their code book. They're going to have access to their resources online. So fair enough. It's online there. It's in the DC Connect. It's fair game for you. I even went as far, and this may sound even really wild and crazy, is that, you know what, in the real world, I sometimes talk to my colleagues. So why not? So when I explained, I know a lot of students would probably giggle when I first said we're going to do the test online and stuff, thinking, yeah, it's going to be open book. And I said, it may not be that easy, but you're going to have all the resources, just like real life. I'm going to treat you like real life. It's all there. And, if you have to talk to a colleague, you talk to a colleague. And because before the inspector comes, you want to make sure you have it right, right? These are the things we do. The other thing I discovered too was that I thought I was like a techie kind of guy, but I've discovered a lot of technology, and I think one of the simple things that we're just talking about, like videos, has been a big thing that I've learned that, hey, I should do a little bit more of this. I should do a little bit more of this. So if I'm not recording my lecture per se in person, we go face to face, maybe having these small 5-minute videos on a key point, on a key mathematical, to help them out. And I don't know. I've also found, I think that how passionate I am about teaching now that I think about it, because I don't know. I think I look back and I was laughing because my dean, talking about my dean again. I forget what I was doing. I think it was when I was applying for my to go to university there for the spring. I was getting her to write a letter, but I think I showed her the stuff I had did, all the PD I had did. And I went because I keep it on my calendar. So I have a hard time keeping track of it. If they put it in my calendar, I'll remember it. So I went back and I tracked the kind of from March up until whatever it was, a year later. And I was like, holy smokes, look how much stuff I've actually done. Little PD sessions here, doing all these little things. And I thought, So, I mean, first of all, I said it can be done. you can educate yourself a little bit as you go along every year. Because I did this much in a pandemic, right? And I said maybe not as much as that, but. And I also, and I kind of realized, okay, I thought I loved teaching, but that shows me that I do really love teaching because I'm willing to put that extra effort into it, right? So I guess I kind of learned that about myself. That's kind of a pat on my own back. I guess I'm tooting my own horn there. Sorry.
That's all right. I asked the question.
Okay, to do it once in a while, I guess, but why not?
Yeah, it's all good. So here's a question that requires a little bit of courage because we don't get asked this question very much. But what's one mistake that you learned the most from in the last year and a bit?
That's a really tough question. I think it may be on the empathy part too, because of we sometimes get trapped into the world of like, okay, I'm married with kids, and I get trapped in the world thinking that no one has it worse off, right? Kind of thing. And I think I discovered, and I think that's maybe a kind of mistake I made. And I kind of corrected early on, especially with like when I talk about extending deadlines for assessments and having them open different periods of time, because I had to come to the realization that, I know some of my students, even when I was face to face, some of your students would share stuff to you, right? Would share with stuff to you, and some wouldn't, right? Some are just there and they do their thing, and something they kind of almost lie on the radar. And but it opened my eyes when I had a lot of people sharing stuff, especially the end of like last year, I guess last year's kind of school year, when I had students, let me know that they had somebody in the hospital with COVID, probably on the verge of dying and stuff, right? And I think we can't assume that we're all in the same boat, and that's why it's kind of my motto's kind of changed, where there's always someone better off than you, there's always someone worse off than you, right? So even if you think you're the greatest, you're not the greatest. There's someone smarter who can replace you, who are doing much better things, whatever. But there's also a lot of people who are remember there's people who are not as fortunate as you are, right? And that may not be, and that's nothing on them. It may be the bad cards that were dealt or whatever. So, yeah, just try to take a pause and try not to be so harsh, because I know that sometimes I'm trying to, I don't know about yourself, I'm trying to ride that line of preparing my students or my apprentices for the real world, where they have to be accountable, but then also remember that sometimes in the real world, if something serious happens, like a death or someone's seriously ill, I'm hoping that whoever they work for in the real world will have an appreciation and, not fire them or give them an extension on the work that they're doing, kind of thing. So I tried to, that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a mistake I've kind of made, that I've kind of discovered. So over the last year or so, I guess.
Powerful. So Ed, you have 2 podcasts, you have a YouTube channel, and you just signed up to devote 20 hours of your life to a different project that's going to take a couple of years for you to do. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just enrolled myself to take on I guess it's about 2 years, right? Yeah, you're right, 2 years of doing a master's in arts, master of arts in learning technology at Royal Roads University. Uh, and first of all, not to give them I'll give them a shout out, not for the, because I want them to be easy. I mean, give me good marks, but shout out on them for being flexible enough to, based on my experience, to let me come in as, I guess, flexible student. And because not all institutions will recognize some of the stuff that we've done. So I'll give a shout out to them for doing that. There's other ones that are doing it too. But yeah, I'm partaking on this. It's going to be a little bit challenging talking about the podcast and stuff. That's why I'm trying to feverishly trying to see if I'm going to do more before the end of the year, because anybody who takes on any education when they're working full time and potentially have a family as well, like I do, you realize that you have to kind of take some other stuff off your plate to kind of be able to do that. And I know myself that between learning from yourself and some other friends like Chad and Sally and Lucy and I could go on and on, that I realized it's a hard to take. And I had a friend, my colleague here, that was kind of the one who pushed me over the edge. The last conversation I had said, go do it. But I'm gonna let you know it's gonna be challenging at first, right? It's gonna be don't know that you're gonna be a little bit scared at first. It's gonna be a little bit rough waters, but to get through that rough waters, you'll be able to survive. So, but you gotta know that was kind of the advice that everybody kind of told me was, be ready to take some stuff off your plate, because you're going to need to, because this is going to fill some time, right? There's only so many hours, as we all know, there's only so many hours in a day. So, but I'm looking forward to it, because for me, it's like a challenge. It's been a goal of mine to further education. Not because I'm not happy with being a Red Seal plumber, just because if you would have talked to me before I became a teacher, professor, way back when I was 17, I would probably say more education, lifelong learner. Yeah, right. But now here I go, right? And I know I've mentioned before with the podcast that, and I've probably mentioned when we were doing the Cascadia, the live kind of version of the practice pedagogy. I think I may have mentioned there too, that I've been doing all these other things like podcasts and joining in with the people and try to get my free education, I guess, right? And now I'm gonna fork up some money, right? Because I've known that from the people I've known that have taken it, some of our friends who've taken it, that there's been people find like a real growth to it. So I'm really excited for that. And also I'm leaving the door open to any future, if I try to any future employment or steps up the ladders, I guess they would say. I'm leaving that door open, and I'm hoping that could assist to it too. But for me, it's about getting my goal of doing it, that I can do it just it could have been any degree, and I would be happy just to complete it. And also the other part of it is because I have kids. So I have a son, the oldest one's 16. The other one's turning 12, and the other one's turning 11. I might have got that wrong. Last two there for a second. I'm going to do the math quickly, but yeah, because they're a little bit older now, they're seeing it out. I kind of want to see their dad complete this, and it's kind of like a role model for them. So, but yeah, it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be exciting. I'm really pumped. I've already did all the pre stuff that online that I could do right now. Right away, the first week I did everything for learning how the campus works and all the services, all those little kind of pre thing you do, right? I forget what it's called now, but I keep going online. It's not starting to April, looking for new stuff that's up there, right? That I can do, right? So
it doesn't start till April, and you've already done everything, and you're looking for more.
Yeah. Because I want to start something. I want to I want to try, right? So, because I know it's going to be hard, working full time, obviously, and having a family is going to be. I mean, there's a lot of people who've done it. I'm not the first one to do it, obviously, but so I'm a kind of guy. I don't know about yourself. I'm a kind of guy that likes to try and keep my desk as clear as I can, at least work wise. Home wise, I'm a little bit more messier. So I like to be ahead of the curve. I don't want things last minute. Unlike when I was in grade school, I'd have my science project due on the Monday. I would start on a Sunday night at 8:30. I will be doing that for this. That's for sure. So.
Yeah, you won't get away with that at this level. That's for sure.
Oh, no.
And I've got my master's degree from Royal Roads, so it's a great institution. Loved my time there. My experience there was great. And I had a family too, and I was going through it. 4 kids, full-time job, the whole deal, right? And I think you become a master of two things, really. You become a master of finding those little niche moments where you can get your reading done, whether it's in the hockey arena or on the soccer pitch, or, you're in between things. You always have a book with you or an article that you got to read.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I found out early on was you don't have to read everything. So when they give you this big, long reading list, I would dive in and try to read everything. And somebody told me, I can't remember who it was early on. They said, no, you don't have to read everything, right? This is all resource for you. You don't have to throw it all away when you're done. So sift through what you want to read and stick to it. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good advice. So you'll do well.
I had somebody recently who told me that a mentor of mine here too at my college, who's our associate dean. He's a background electrician, but he told me, he goes, that's what I did. He goes, I looked at the readings and I looked at the titles of the readings and I went, whichever ones kind of triggered him first, that kind of excite him. Because he goes, I had a tendency to read through those pretty quickly as well, because it kind of got to me. Right. So sound advice. That's good though. Cause I don't think I can handle a lot of reading. If I was expected to do every single reading, I think I'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. That's for sure. Good. Awesome. All right, Ed. So as we close up, thanks again for taking the time to be on the show today. I really appreciate you being here. As you leave, one question that comes to mind is what do you want to learn about your practice in teaching moving forward? What's something that you're really sinking your teeth into outside of the master's degree? And some of the stuff that we already talked about today. Is there anything that's burning for you, top of mind, that you want to sink your teeth into?
Yeah, I want to sink my teeth more into the OER end of things. I think I've kind of learned some stuff about it. Like I was learning. I remember a while back I learned. I think it was I had tweeted something out. Oh, I think I have some OER, right? And then I think Chad tweeted back. Chad Flynn there tweeted back. But is it free for all of us to use and stuff? How's it licensed? I'm like, oh, is there a license on there? I didn't know that. So I went back and okay, I checked it. Creative Commons. I'm like, okay. But I like to learn more about that. I like to try and figure ways to implement it and maybe learn from some, the likes of you and him and try to implement it more into the programs. Because I hate to say it, I was and one of my colleagues was upset with me because I was a big proponent for our post-secondary program to get a textbook put in place. And he was against it, and so he'd probably be happy to hear me saying this right now. So maybe he would actually talk to me now that I say it. But yeah, because I just realized, but I also want to be part of it because I realized that I know you've been doing a lot of work, and the Chad and the other people have been doing work, adding more resources to that. There's not a great deal out there, especially in the trades, but the stockpile is kind of growing. So I would like to learn more about it, be part of some of those. And hopefully, have a legacy where we kind of built things up a little bit better. So that's one thing I would definitely want to learn about in my pedagogy and my practice. So.
Well, that makes me excited. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our good friend, Brandon Carson, who is with eCampus Ontario. And I think he's at Durham College for a period of time. And so he's a good guy to connect with regarding OER. And, he's got a great last name too. So, he's coming from.
Yeah. Not related. Not related. Just a great name. Just a great last name. But so more OER is always a good thing, especially in the trades. Look forward to that. Thanks again, Ed, for being on the show, and appreciate you so much and everything that you're doing. Keep moving forward one foot ahead of a time. And I love watching what you put out there. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me on. It was a great pleasure to be on with you. No problem.
Hey everyone, thanks again for taking the time to listen to this podcast. I hope you found this podcast with Ed informative and funny. Ed sure has a big heart for his students, and I'm really glad that he's in the system teaching and mentoring apprentices as he goes. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to drop us a note on the website, praxispedagogy.com. Be happy to address anything that you want to leave there. If there's any suggestions you have on topics that you'd like to hear on the podcast, again, leave us a note on the website, praxispedagogy.com. Be more than happy to engage with you there as well. Thanks again for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great week. Take care.